1965 by Curtis Mayfield. It fits into many genres: folk music, hymnal, pop and soul music. It also has an old sound and is also done in church services as a spiritual number. One of its multiple themes talks about the struggle for freedom while incorporating faith into our lives. It hints that change is about to occur, but it leaves space to be interpreted as to what the actual change is. I choose this song to lead into my talk about civility, as I feel that returning to civil behavior is the most important change our civilization must make. Now, when I first started writing this talk, I almost didn't complete it. Now, I'm generally a very positive person, and this talk is about a very, very serious subject. But the more I thought about it, this is a subject that must be discussed. So if I get anyone annoyed or angry at me during the service and I decide to throw vegetables, I prefer avocados and tomatoes. So here's my talk, which I call The Fall of Civility: What Has Society Come to? Sadly, in today's world, it's really becoming a vitriolical. Now, everyone has their own opinion, as it should be. The difference is, do you dare to voice it? It used to be that differences in opinions brought out the debaters of the times, the true philosophers. Even if they had completely opposite views, each party still exhibited respect for the other party. But not anymore. In many cases, if you have the audacity to actually listen to all sides of an issue and not automatically vote the party ticket, or have an opinion that does not necessarily go with the majority, beware. In days gone by, when two parties had a different opinion on the subject, it was an opportunity for both parties to actually learn from each other. Perhaps even change the other person's mind on a particular issue. After all, the wonderful diversity of our species lends itself to different ways of looking at the same topic, which is vital for being able to coexist. But these days, sadly, are quickly disappearing. And with that disappearance looms the potential of some dangerous situations for the human race. For example, our government was purposely structured with three independent branches, not only to allow for differences, but to encourage discussions and resolution through our congressional system. Then and only then, through discussion and in many cases compromise, can things be done to help all of the people. This is what made America great. But in recent history, due to runaway egos, greed, a desire for power, and excess tribalism, this is dramatically changing. These days, during a discussion, if your opposition cannot support their views with facts, be prepared to be vilified, your credibility attacked, and in some cases, your actual safety threatened. This is the strategy that is alive and well, and it must be changed if we are to survive as a species. Whatever happened to civil discourse? It used to be that brave, honorable people, they fought the good fight, demonstrating their intelligence, statesmanship, and the facts to get their point across. Now individuals prevail by using intimidation, slander, backroom deals, and take whatever steps necessary to gain support for their unsupportable positions, without any regard whatsoever to the other party. So much for being an interconnected web. Why has society fallen so far? Now, before I start this other part, I'm not saying that anyone here or anyone is doing this deliberately. It may be a habit, but it needs to be talked about. The answer is simple, and you're not going to like it. It's because every one of us creates the problem. Now, please don't turn around thinking I'm talking about the person next to you. It's everyone, including myself. Why do I say we are to blame? Because over the last century or so, we use, as a society, have allowed the media to increasingly emphasize what I call glorified confrontation, overinflated egos and pride as being the fashionable thing. Whether it's apathy, fear, or downright stupidity, this attitude has now come back to bite us in our collective posteriors. We also encourage violent and confrontational behavior by our media choices. Movies and television shows which glorify violence are many of the higher rated ones. Why is that? I don't have an answer to that question. You see, media is really easy to figure out. They do exactly what we want them to. How do we know that? Simply by the ratings. Programs on TV that do not have high ratings are taken off the air as they're not making enough money through paid advertising support. If your program has a small audience, they will lose income because of less advertising. Neither entity really cares what they show as long as people watch it. Again, they don't care what is shown on their platform as long as we watch it and we support their advertisers. So again, let's all collectively look in the mirror. Can you see the very well? As this isn't bad enough, what is our next generation going to be like? Have we ever stopped to think that our children or grandchildren, they mimic our principles, morals, ethics, or lack of them? Do as I say, not as I do, no longer cuts it. Not anymore. Our children, who are highly perceptive for the most part, will do as they see us do, regardless of what we try to teach them. If we are manipulative with disposable ethics and a moral compass that changes moment to moment, then why are we surprised and dismayed why our children and grandchildren end up the same way? I mentioned glorified confrontation earlier in this talk. I'd like to get into this a little bit more. Years ago, not that far in the past, in a sporting event, if you did anything visibly to taunt or in any way to embarrass your opponent and not act as a sports person, you were penalized and in some cases barred from participating in future events. Now, for example, in a pro football game, you are not only not penalized if you do a dance for too long in the end zone, only if it holds up the game and messes up the commercial timing. Otherwise, it's okay to insult the other team. The fact that you are insulting your opponent no longer means anything. Needless to say, this leads to elevated retaliation as no person wants to be embarrassed by the other team in public. So much for sportsmanship. Trash talking, demeaning opponents, showmanship-type behavior is quickly being ingrained in the psyche of our younger generation. The in-your-face method of achieving goals is now fashionable, and guess who made it that way? Got your mirror handy? Some faiths are striving to teach their communities to act the opposite way, the right way, to show respect for other people. A noble cause, but what a good we have to climb that. The sad thing is, we're the ones who built the hill. So what can we do as people to start to reverse this alarming trend? The first thing is to leave your egos and your fears at the door. Create an environment where lack of respectful behavior, excess envy, jealousy, and most importantly, fear are not part of who we are. Now, I realize this is easier said than done. In fact, it is, from my own opinion, the biggest goals that human must reach if our world is to survive another century. Blatant commercialism of bad attitudes must be stopped, and we are the only ones that can do it. It'll mean sacrifice and reaching out for what and whom we fear the most, which is the most difficult. In order to conquer fear, both real and imagined, we must communicate and listen. Repeat, listen to individuals that we are most fearful of for whatever reason, so we thoroughly understand their point of view and their motivation. That is the step that each of us must be willing to take to be able to work together as a society, respect one another, and break this vicious cycle we find ourselves in. We must, as a society, heal and destroy false perceptions which continue to exist. Why is it so hard to understand this concept? To close, the other night I saw a rerun of an old science fiction movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. This is the original one with Michael Renner. In paraphrasing one of his most poignant moments, when the visiting alien states to the leaders of the world, as long as you have your petty little wars and disputes on your own world, we are not concerned. But now that you are developing nuclear power, if you bring your violence to outer space and other planets, Earth will be reduced to a burning cinder. Something to think about. Thanks for listening. I know this was a difficult topic.